An historic, very dramatic action to reduce the price of prescription drugs for American patients and American seniors. Previous administrations did nothing, absolutely nothing, as drug lobbyists, special interests in foreign countries freely ripped off our citizens. Therefore, today I'm signing 4 sweeping executive orders that will lead to massive reduction in drug costs. Massive. The 4 orders I'm signing today will completely restructure the prescription drug market in terms of pricing and everything else to make these medications affordable and accessible for all Americans. For decades, our citizens have paid the highest prices for drugs, prescription drugs, anywhere in the world, and it's not even close. But under my administration, we're standing up to the lobbyists and special interests and fighting back against a rigged system. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Please. This promises to be a very big and very important meeting, so bear with me. Take a little while, but it has to do with a thing called drug pricing. And as you know, Congress has been working on this for decades and decades, and we are now doing something that is going to be incredible for the American public. So today I'm taking a bold and historic, very dramatic action to reduce the price of prescription drugs for American patients and American seniors. Previous administrations did nothing, absolutely nothing, as drug lobbyists, special interests in foreign countries freely ripped off our citizens. Under the last administration alone, drug prices rose a staggering 55%. Thanks to my administration's aggressive action since taking office, we have successfully lowered drug prices for the first time in 51 years. But this reduction is still not close to what I want, what I expect, and I'm looking for help for our great seniors, especially in particular, and that's what we're doing today. You'll hear something which will be very shocking. So we're doing things that nobody thought could be done, and it's going to have an incredible impact. Unfortunately, we've been waiting for Congress to take action for many decades to reduce drug prices for more than just a small handful of people. But even the small handful of people never got price reductions, and I'm unwilling to wait any longer. Therefore, today I'm signing 4 sweeping executive orders that will lead to massive reduction in drug costs. Massive. We've already gotten them down a little bit, but that's not good enough. First time in 51 years, as I said, but that's not good enough. They represent the most far-reaching prescription drug reforms ever issued by a president, nothing even close. These providers should not be receiving discounts for themselves while charging their poorest patients massive full prices. Under this order, the price of insulin for affected patients will come down to just pennies a day from numbers that you weren't able to think about. It's a massive cost savings. The second executive order I'm signing this afternoon will allow states, wholesalers, and pharmacies to do something other politicians have promised for decades and decades, but never done. They never delivered. We will finally allow the safe and legal importation of prescription drugs from Canada and other countries where the price for the identical drug is incredibly lower. It's a difference like you wouldn't believe. 70%, 80%, 90%, 30%, but massively lower than the identical drug made in the same plant, the same factory, the same exact drug, same everything, same box, same pill, and yet it's 50, 60, 70% lower. And this is something that Ron and I have been discussing from the time Ron got elected, and I've been wanting to do it, and it takes a long time from a legal standpoint, and we've got it all worked out. So you're going to be getting massive drug savings in Florida and other states. And we've had numerous states that wanted to do it. Ron really was at the forefront, I will say that. But you have other states that have caught on. It's caught on very quickly. Didn't take them long to figure that one out, Ron. It's too obvious. We pay for all of the research and all of the development, and foreign countries pay absolutely nothing, and our consumer gets charged. This has been going on for decades. The American people pay an average of over 3 times more for medicine than the Canadians. Many people go to Canada. I see it all the time. They go to Canada to buy drugs, and then they come back, prescription drugs, because they save so much money. The trip is well worth it. The Obama-Biden administration pledged to end this unfairness and allow drug importation, but they never got it done. They were unable to get it done. They didn't get a lot of things done. But under my administration, we're standing up to the lobbyists and special interests and fighting back against a rigged system. Rigged system, you've heard that word before. I'm unrigging the system that is many decades old. We're doing something that should have been done a long time ago. The third revolutionary order I'm signing today will prevent middlemen and women, I guess. But you've heard about the middleman, right? The middleman that makes so much money nobody knows who they are. Nobody has any idea who they are. They make more money, perhaps, than even the drug companies themselves. And the drug companies, in all fairness to them, Big Pharma. And they're doing a great job in the vaccines. They're doing a great job in therapeutics, I can tell you, because I deal with them a lot. But I think the middlemen make more money than they do, and they don't do much. Maybe they don't do anything. Some people say they don't do anything. Nobody even knows who they are. But the middlemen are making a fortune, and pharmacy benefit managers and people are just bilking Medicare patients with these high drug prices while they pocket gigantic discounts. Gigantic discounts. The amount of money they've made over the decades is too incredible even to speculate or say. It's massive. Some very rich people are not going to like me very much today, I can tell you. I probably know them very well. I probably see them in Palm Beach. But nobody ever talks about who they are. Everyone, I hear the middleman for years, the middleman. Right, Alex? And he doesn't know who they are either, but he knows they're rich. And they're not going to be so rich anymore, because the money is going down to reduce the price of drugs, prescription drugs. So that's a big thing. That's a tremendous step. It should have been taken a long time ago, but they have a great deal of power. And I don't have to tell you how many phone calls I've had in the last few days when they heard I was going to be doing this. I've heard from people that I haven't spoken to in a long time. Frequently, drug companies give these middlemen discounts of up to 50% on the price of prescription drugs. But too often, those discounts are not passed on to the pharmacy counter, meaning the people. This rule will pass those billions and billions of dollars a year, I mean, many, many billions a year in discounts onto patients, directly onto patients, saving Americans with high drug costs thousands of dollars a year. Individual people will make thousands of dollars a year. You're not going to believe the impact that the things we're talking about today are going to have. Mark Meadows, our great chief, is sitting here, and he's just can't even believe it, because he was a very successful congressman. He's been after people to do this for a long time, and they never got to the gate. I understand why. Tremendous pressure. Tremendous pressure put on the president not to do it. The fourth and final order I'm signing today, this is the granddaddy of them all, will end global freeloading on the backs of American patients and American seniors. For decades, our citizens have paid the highest prices for drugs, prescription drugs, anywhere in the world, and it's not even close. Foreign nations have paid vastly less for the exact same drug, again, in the exact same box, from the exact same plant, from the exact same company. They would pay 10%, 20%, 30% what our people are paying. A pill that would sell for for $1 in certain countries, I won't name them, they're all allies, right? They call them allies. I call them so-called allies. But a pill that would cost $1 could be $7, $8 in our country. Same exact pill. We pay 80% more than nations like Germany, Canada, and others for some of the most expensive medicines, identical in all respects. This means that Americans are funding the enormous cost of drug research and development for the entire planet. We are bearing the entire cost of all of this. They're bearing none. They say this is what we're going to pay. In some cases, it's a socialist country. So we're paying to reduce drug prices in a socialist country. How does that work? How does that work? And these are things that should have been done a long time ago. And even from our standpoint, we would have done it more quickly, but we have to go through vast amounts of waiting periods, waiting times, and this is an incredible day. This is just a big day. This is a big day. I've been waiting for this day for a long time. We incredibly and foolishly bear the full cost of all research and development, which is massive. In all fairness to the drug companies, it can take 15 years to get something approved, billions and billions of dollars for a simple drug. It also means that the U.S. taxpayers are effectively subsidizing the socialist healthcare systems of foreign welfare states and many other countries. We will end that abuse and restore the principles of free enterprise, but this doesn't even have to do with free enterprise. This has to do with common sense and courage, to be honest, and courage. Under this transformative order, Medicare will be required to purchase drugs at the same price as other countries pay. So we would pay 4 or 5 times more for a drug. We now pay, if somebody else pays $1 and we pay $5, we're paying $1. Now what's going to happen is their number will go up, our number will come very substantially down, and we'll all agree at 2.5 or 2 or whatever the final number is. But if some country is paying wherever it may be in the world because they had a better negotiator, because they had smarter people than we have, and that's what it's all about. Maybe more honest people, who knows, could be a lot of things going. But we get now the lowest price anywhere in the world, and no more will we have to suffer by saying, gee, why is it so much cheaper for the exact same drug in some other country? We will determine what other medically advanced nations pay for the most expensive drugs. And instead of paying the highest price, Medicare will pay the lowest price, and so will lots of other U.S. buyers. Medicare is the largest purchaser of drugs anywhere in the world by far. Medicare, largest purchaser of drugs in the world. And we're finally going to use that incredible power to achieve a fairer and lower price for everyone. Everyone will get a fairer and much lower price. This is not talking about 0.5%. This is big stuff. Under our ridiculous system, which has been broken for decades, we aren't even allowed to negotiate the price of drugs. Can you believe it? I said, when are we going to negotiate? We're not allowed. We're restricted by Congress from negotiating the price of drugs. Can you imagine? You say, I want to get a better price. I'm sorry, sir, you're not allowed to do that. That's illegal. What kind of a system is that? Do you think the world looks at us and said, where the hell did these people come from? But they treat us very nicely. But it's not. It's going to end, okay? I see you're a fan of what we're saying. You must be a doctor. Are you a doctor? Yeah. Doctors know. The doctors know. You've known that for years. We're not allowed to negotiate. Can you believe it? We just have to take whatever it is. I'm pleased to announce that as a result of the orders I'm signing today, the heads of the major drug companies have requested a meeting to discuss how we can quickly and significantly lower drug prices and out-of-pocket expenses for Americans. They want to do what's right. Look, they're going to do what's right. Look, I think it's so important what they're doing on therapeutics and vaccines, and we're going to see them on Tuesday. We'll see if we can do something here, but this could have been done a long time ago. The drug company executives will be at the White House on Tuesday, and they have some ideas how to significantly reduce drug prices. We've already given them to you. I don't know if they can possibly do something to substitute for what's called favored nations. Favored nations, that means we get the lowest price anywhere in the world. Whoever gets the best price, congratulations. Thank you very much for being a good negotiator, because we now get the lowest price too. Should have been done a long time ago. If these talks are successful, we may not need to implement the fourth executive order, which is a very tough order for them. Very tough. And I understand that. And we have a lot of respect for our great pharmaceutical companies, drug companies. We have a lot of respect for them. So we'll see what they have to say on Tuesday. Maybe they have an idea that's good, but it's got to be very substantial. They're actually in favor of the rebate rule, the rollback, because they say that's people getting money that aren't even doing anything for it, and bigger money than they're getting, I believe. If they are not, the order will be implemented if we don't do a deal or agree to something. The order, number 4, favored nations, a big order. They're all big. All 4 are very big, by the way, very big. But the fourth order, we're going to hold that until August 24th, hoping that the pharmaceutical companies will come up with something that will substantially reduce drug prices. And the clock starts right now. So it's August 24th at 12 o'clock, after which the order on favored nations will go into effect. And Mark, I'll hold you to it, please, 12 o'clock, not 12:01, right? In the meantime, we're working very hard on therapeutics and a vaccine for the China virus, which remains our top priority and which are coming along at record speed. Thank you very much, Dr. Hahn. Been fantastic. You really have been fantastic. 2 vaccine candidates are entering the final stage of clinical trials this month, right? 2. And several more vaccines will enter final trials in the following weeks. I did speak to one just recently. They're working on therapeutics as opposed to vaccine, and frankly, that's the most exciting to me. We can walk into a hospital right now and get people better. I like that even more. But the vaccine long-term will be great. So we have them both going. They're both going rapidly, and they're both going very well. And I guess the early indications are we're beyond happy, right? It's beyond happy. We're mass producing all of the most promising candidates already, so that on day one, that means that we think we have the answer. Otherwise, we wouldn't be making that bet. It's a big bet. So that on day one, the day we get it approved, it will be available immediately, Doctor. Is that correct? So if we get it approved, now normally this process would take to get up to where we are now 3 years, 4 years. I've heard numbers like that. And we did it in literally a matter of weeks. It's a really incredible thing. One of the other things, I was talking about drugs in the pipeline for getting drugs approved, and it does cost billions of dollars, and it would be 12 years, 15 years. And under Dr. Hahn and Scott, before you, worked very hard, Scott Gottlieb, we've got that down to a number that's less than half, and we're going down further. We have to make sure it's safe. And right to try came out of this whole thing, where we have a drug that we think is good. Matt Gaetz helped with this and getting it approved, and Mark, when he was a congressman. But we had great help from certain people. But right to try is incredible. We have a drug that works, but it's got to go through this very long and very detailed process for purposes of safety and to make sure it's good. If somebody's terminally ill, very sick, person not going to make it, person very sick, we passed legislation, which they've been trying to get for 42 years. It's called Right to Try, where people sign a document that if it doesn't work out, they're not suing the drug company, they're not suing the insurance company, and they're not suing our country. And instead of traveling, if they have money, they travel to Asia, and they travel to Europe, they travel all over the world in the hopes of finding a cure. They're terminally ill. If they have no money, sadly, they go home with no hope and they die. We have now a program, Right to Try, finally happened after, I guess, as long as you've been a doctor, long before you became a doctor, right? They've been trying to get this. But we now have a program where they can try these really promising medicines, and you have no idea how successful this has already been. It's incredible. And one of the things that really came out of it was the biggest problem for the drug companies. They didn't want it because they didn't want it in their sample. Because people that are that sick, they don't want it in the sample. And so we created a separate sample so it doesn't hurt them. But one of the things that's come out of it is, if it works, what is a better testing formula than that? Somebody that's terminally ill and all of a sudden makes it. And we're having examples of that. It's been incredible. It's been an incredible program. I hope somebody's going to be able to write a story about it, because it's been one of the things that I'm very proud of it. I love the name even, Right to Try. They have the right to try a drug that's not going to be available for 2 years or 3 years. They're terminally ill. Before you'd say, well, they're terminally ill, yeah, but we don't want to give them a drug that's going to hurt them. Well, they're going to die. And they didn't want to give them a drug because they thought it might be dangerous. And perhaps in some cases it may be dangerous, but we're having tremendous success with that program. Proud of it.
Cut the cost of prescription drugs. We pay more for the same drug produced by the same company in America than any other country in the world. Just look at insulin. 1 in 10 Americans has diabetes. In Virginia, I met a 13-year-old boy, the handsome young man standing up there, Joshua Davis. He and his dad both have type 1 diabetes, which means they need insulin every single day. Insulin costs about $10 a vial to make. That's what it costs the pharmaceutical company. But drug companies charge families like Joshua and his dad up to 30 times that amount. I spoke with Joshua's mom. Imagine what it's like to look at your child who needs insulin to stay healthy and have no idea how in God's name you're going to be able to pay for it. What it does to your family, but what it does to your dignity, your ability to look your child in the eye. For years, Big Pharma has blocked us in Medicare from negotiating drug prices, but not this year. We beat Big Pharma. We finally beat them, first time. Big Pharma lost. And folks, now Medicare will have the power to do what so many Democrats and many Republicans in the past talked about doing, lowering prescription drug prices. That's what this is about. For too long, Americans have paid more for prescription drugs than any advanced nation on earth. You can have the exact same drug made by the exact same company in the United States, and you buy it in America for one price. You go to Toronto, Paris, Berlin, or any other major capital in the world. In fact, you'll find they're paying 2 to 3 times less than the American is paying at an American drugstore. Folks, it's wrong. The results, seniors are skipping doses, cutting pills in half, foregoing prescriptions entirely because they simply can't afford the prescription drugs. But not anymore. We finally, after all these years, beat Big Pharma when I signed the Inflation Reduction Act to get seniors and taxpayers a better deal. For years, there's been no check on how high or how fast Big Pharma can raise drug prices. In the year before we passed this legislation, drug makers jacked up prices nearly 4 times faster than inflation went up. And they were already too high. Let's call this for what it is. It's a ripoff. They're ripping off Medicare. They're ripping off the American people. But we're now fighting back. As part of our law, which passed last year, drug companies can raise prices more than, if they raise prices more than inflation, they'll have to pay back the difference between inflation, has it gone up, and the price they charge. And that means consumers will pay less as well. They're going to save taxpayers money and discourage companies from raising prices in the first place. Here's how it's going to work. And on its face, it seems complicated, but it's really not that complicated. Every quarter, Medicare publishes a list of drugs administered by doctors whose prices have been hiked too much too fast. Today, Medicare is announcing its latest list, 48 prescription drug prices. were raised faster than the rate of inflation was raised in the same period. These drugs are used by 750,000 Americans. If medication you take is on the list, our program is going to keep your costs down. For example, many seniors taking the drug Signifor, for growth hormone disorders, will save over $300 per month. In the last year, 64 different drugs have been listed for these rebates. Some seniors have saved more than $600 per dose. And that's not all. We're not only working to slow price hikes, we're also working to bring down drug prices, period, just bring them down. For starters, my legislation finally gives Medicare the power to negotiate to lower drug prices like the Department of Veterans Affairs has been able to do for a long time. Now Medicare is able to do that. We've been fighting for decades, and I literally mean decades, to give Medicare that right. With this law, we finally beat Big Pharma. And we got it done, I must admit, with no help from the other team at all. Not one single Republican voted for it. In August, the first 10 drugs were selected for negotiation. Drugs that treat things like arthritis, cancer, heart failure, and so much more. In all, this law is going to save the federal government $160 billion over the next 10 years. You hear me? Because Medicare is going to pay less, it's going to save the federal government taxpayers $160 billion over the next 10 years. That money will go toward reducing the deficit and not enriching Big Pharma. It also reduces the cost of insulin for seniors from as much as $400 per month to just $35 per month. It makes important vaccines for seniors like shingles free, saving them $200 per shot. And it's going to cap the total out-of-pocket drug costs for seniors on Medicare. Now, next year in 24, it's going to be capped at, no matter what your costs are, it's going to be tapped at $3,500. But in 2025, it's going to go down to $2,000 per year, no matter how expensive your drugs are. And drugs, as you heard from my introducer, can be up to $10,000, $12,000, $14,000 a year for cancer drugs. David just said that his cancer drug costs $16,000 a year. Thanks to this law, he's going to pay a hell of a lot less. It's a real game changer. This law is going to lower costs. It'll save lives for people who forego drugs because they can't afford them. And I'll give folks a little more, just my dad just said, a little more breathing room. Just a little more breathing room. That's what Bidenomics is all about. Folks, negotiation and competition are the engines of a market economy. In every other industry, people negotiate prices every time. But with Big Pharma, it's been used to get its own way, no negotiation, suppressing competition instead of innovation. Drug companies say they need that extra revenue to develop cutting-edge drugs. Well, but studies show Big Pharma lately has spent more on stock buybacks, executive pay, and research than on research. Meanwhile, American taxpayers are footing the bill, more of the bill. Through their tax dollars, Americans pay more for federal drug research here at the National Institute of Health and other programs than folks in any other country in the world pay for. And we're happy to spend the money for the research because they do such good work. I believe it's a good thing that leads to breakthroughs that save lives. But drug companies benefit considerably from that research. They could not make their own drugs without the research done here. Taxpayers already are chipping in, paying a lot of money for that here at NIH to get these brilliant scientists to go out and find cures, find answers to drug problems, to drugs, with the use of drugs for health problems. And then they turn around and they charge Americans more because they charge than anyone else in the world because they, the private companies, take advantage of what happens here at this institute. I think it's outrageous. I'm pleased to announce that from now on, the part of the federal government that prepares for and responds to public health emergencies will make the so-called fair pricing a standard part of its contract and negotiations with drug makers. That means American families will finally pay the same as people in other countries for many of the vaccines and treatments developed or funded through their own tax dollars in the first place. It's a simple principle. You shouldn't pay a highest price in the world for drugs that your tax dollars have already helped create. We're already begun to secure fair pricing clauses and contracts for new COVID vaccines, 3 new COVID vaccines. And we recently proposed that when a drug company prices drugs so high that Americans can't afford them, when those drugs were created by the American tax dollars, the federal government can step in and allow other companies to make and sell that same drug for less, because they did it here. This is all part of my administration's work to promote competition across our economy, to lower costs, to raise wages, and improve care. Last week, we announced new steps to crack down on anti-competitive practices in healthcare. And we're going after what we call junk fees, like junk health insurance plans that look affordable and then turn out to stick consumers with hidden costs they didn't know existed. We cracked down on so-called surprise billing. For example, when a patient goes to a hospital for surgery, and it turns out the anesthesiologist, maybe a wonderful man or woman, is out of their network, their insurance network, they get a surprise bill for thousands of dollars because it's not covered. They didn't know they were going to get that bill. They should be aware of it. We're protecting millions of Americans every month from these unexpected medical bills. We're taking steps to ban the use of medical debt in credit reporting. Think about this now. How many people have medical bills? If I added up all the costs of when I was in the hospital, it's literally several $100,000. Imagine had I gotten that and I didn't have insurance and I ended up in debt because of that. Well, the credit reporting is so families in the credit reporting, those bills cannot be held against you forever by denying your credit. So they're not counted in your credit statement. Folks, here's the deal. Americans don't like being played for suckers. But Republicans are okay with that. They're fighting to keep these junk fees. They're trying to cut Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, and they're very straightforward about it. And not a single solitary Republican voted for any of the legislation which is responsible for so much of this drug savings. When I know some want to. Now they want to repeal the law and let Big Pharma charge whatever it wants for prescription drugs again. They want to send us back to the bad old days. In short, Republicans want to raise costs for seniors and working families and allow exorbitant profits for Big Pharma. I will not let that happen as long as I'm around. I'm a capitalist. Should be able to make profit in significant amounts of money. I have no problem with companies making reasonable profits, though, but not on the backs of seniors and working people. For too many folks, the cost of even just one drug can mean the difference between life and death, hope and fear. This is all about fairness. It's about dignity, as I was saying to these folks behind me before we came in.
Of medical debt.
Yeah, 7 on your side's Michael Finney joins us with how to make this all work for you.
Yeah, this is really cool. $1 billion worth of medical debt is being removed from credit reports. Why? It just wasn't fair.
Medical debt has always been a problem because it's different than credit card debt. It's not like you go out and buy a whole bunch of things and don't pay it off. If you're sick or in a car accident and wind up in the hospital, you have no idea what it might cost you, what the insurance company might pay, and what you might get stuck with.
Consumers Checkbook's Herb Weisbaum knows all about medical debt. He has reported on it and defended consumers for decades. Bobby Payton, on the other hand, learned about the issue the hard way.
I am still currently paying from a surgery that I had back in January.
The single parent worries about medical debt showing up on her credit report, and with good reason.
Don't be late. You're a day late and there's a phone call. So I had that happen last month. And I have an automatic debit come out on an HSA card. I was $6 short on making that payment for my HSA, and it went through, and of course it denied. And I got a phone call the next day.
However, there is good news for Bobby and others stuck in her situation. The 3 major credit reporting agencies are making big changes. Right now, medical debts won't be reported for a year. Soon, those medical debts under $500 won't be reported at all. And paid bills won't hang around to haunt your credit score. Melinda Opperman is with credit.org.
Effective July 1 of this year, the new changes went into effect that paid collections that are paid will no longer even be included on consumers' credit reports.
Great news, but there is a catch.
Remember, this is voluntary. The credit bureaus have agreed to do this on their own. So if you had a situation where medical debt was reported on your file and they say they're going to remove it, you need to check your credit report and make sure they've done it.
And if you need help, there is help available.
That's where working with a nonprofit consumer credit counselors can help. I mean, we are the first line of defense. We offer free counseling. It's unbiased, it's objective, and it's neutral.
Now, if you have or had medical debt, go to annualcreditreport.com and pull each of your 3 credit reports from Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, and make sure the medical debt has been erased. It's free to do that, by the way. I have links to Herb's article on all of this for Consumers Checkbook and a link to credit.com on our website, abc7news.com.